Hey there, welcome to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. All right, I want to come on here and share with you my thoughts on a recent release from the Criterion Collection on 4K Ultra HD. This came out just a few weeks ago as of the time I'm recording this video. It came out toward the end of April, and it comes out on Spine 1259. This is a 4K release of the 8th film from Sean Baker, and it is the Academy Award-winning film Anora. This film won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture at the most recent Oscar ceremony. It won Best Picture for Sean Baker and his wife Samantha Kwan. Producer won Best Director for Sean Baker, Best Actress for Mikey Madison, who played the character role in here, Annie or Anora, and won Best Original Screenplay. So it just did an amazing job at the Oscars. It won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival in 2024. So this is a celebrated film that has gotten a new 4K release in the Criterion Collection. So I want to come on here and share my thoughts on what I think about this movie, what I feel about this film having seen it. And I'm still processing how I feel about it, to tell you the truth. But I'll share with you my thoughts on this movie. I'll talk about the 4K picture, how it looks on 4K, and how it sounds with that 5.1 DTS HD Master Audio soundtrack, the supplements, and whether or not this is a release that's worth picking up in an upcoming sale. Now, it is important to note, I just got a notification earlier today that the Criterion Collection on the Criterion.com site is holding a 30% off sale on their site through Memorial Day, May 26th. So for the next couple of weeks, Criterion.com is holding a 30% off all Criterion disc sale through May the 26th. So this could be a good time to pick up Anora on the Criterion.com site, earn points toward that $50 gift certificate. I think if you purchase up to $500 of merchandise on their site, they give you a $50 gift card. So could be a way to earn points toward that. If you don't want to wait for a 50% off sale, maybe a good time to take advantage of titles at 30% off. Or do you want to wait for another 50% off sale in July, or a flash sale in October, or another sale in November? Is this a title worth picking up and adding to your cart somewhere down the road? On the other side of this, we'll talk about it. Let's do this. All right, we're talking about Anora, the 4K edition from the Criterion Collection that has recently come out. This is a very fascinating title. It is in a very handsome looking digipack presentation here. So packaging, so digipack packaging that I definitely appreciate. It was a pleasant surprise getting that digipack in the mail. I was like, oh, nice. I wasn't really expecting it until I saw it, which is quite good to, it's good to have that pleasant surprise feel, So I want to talk about this edition, the supplements, how it looks on 4K Ultra HD, what I think about the movie. And let me just go ahead and start by reading the back of the case here. It says, contemporary cinema's foremost chronicler of American dreamers and schemers hustling on the margins of capitalist promise, Sean Baker reaches new heights of mastery with this audacious anti-Cinderella story, a whirlwind neo-realist screwball comedy with an aching heart. In An Electric Star is Born performance, Mikey Madison soars as Anora, an enterprising, ferociously foul-mouthed Brooklyn erotic dancer and sex worker whose prince not-so-charming comes along in the form of a Russian oligarch's wild child son, played by Mark Edelstein. This is the beginning of a fractured fairy tale, also featuring standout performances from Karen Kuruglian, who I understand has played in a number of Sean Baker films, if not nearly all of his films, Yura Borisov, and Vache Tavmasyan, that turns the cruel realities of class inside out. Winner of the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, Anora confirms Baker is one of our preeminent auteurs. So, Sean Baker is definitely a preeminent auteur of American independent cinema, and I will go to his slide right now. You see here, this is an article from the Movie Maker magazine that he Sean Baker and Mikey Madison on the Love, Sex, Money, Work story. They were featured in that magazine. You see Sean Baker there at a screening of Anora. Director Sean Baker, a true auteur and a defining voice in American independent film. So, Sean Baker, he's known for his empathetic and ground level portraits of marginalized communities. And he once again delivers a human centered story with humor, heart, and a sharp eye for social dynamics. Now, I've only seen, in addition to Anora, this is the second title from Sean Baker that I've actually ever seen. The first title that I saw from Sean Baker is Takeout, which has an edition in the Criterion Collection that I reviewed a couple of years ago. So definitely check that out. And the next title from Sean Baker that I plan to see is this one right here that came in last week, Prince of Broadway. So I plan to check this one out. This is from 2008. So this is Spine 1258 in the Criterion Collection. So definitely plan to check out Prince of Broadway probably later this week. But right now we're talking about Anora, this very fascinating film that he created last year or the year before that just swept the award season this past season. But you see here Sean Baker and Mikey Madison. And of course, Sean Baker and wife Samantha Kwan, producer of Anora and Red Rocket. So these on the far left, you see the various films from Sean Baker, starting with Four Letter Words, Takeout, which came out in 2004, Prince of Broadway, 2008, that I just showed. Definitely looking forward to checking that out. I have not seen Starlet, Tangerine, or The Florida Project, or Red Rocket. So those are titles that I look forward to checking out at some point. And then that brings us to Anora. But yes, Sean Baker and wife Samantha Kwan, producer of Anora and Red Rocket. Of course, you see there at the top right, Sean Baker and his wife Samantha holding their Oscars for winning as as producer and director for Anora. And then you see the two of them down there at the bottom right together. What a huge night for them and the entire cast and crew of this very fascinating film. Of course, had a very big night at the Oscars. I do wonder in part what would have happened had there not been the controversy with the other film, another film that was in the running called Amelia Perez, some of the controversy surrounding that. Do wonder what would have happened if that controversy had not happened. But in any event, we will never know. What we do know is that Anora is the most recent winner of the Academy Award for Best Picture. And having seen it, I can definitely appreciate, why it was awarded, the award, and why Mikey Madison won Best Actress. I was actually rooting for Demi Moore to win for The Substance, but having seen Anora and seen Mikey Madison's performance in this picture, I have to say I can definitely understand why she took home the award that night. Her performance in this movie is incredible. Portrayal of sex work in Baker's film. So, this is a theme that Sean Baker has running through a number of his films, is the portrayal of people who are in this line of work, sex workers. And of course, the main character in Anora, Ani, played by Mikey Madison, is a sex worker. She is an exotic dancer in a New York City nightclub. She lives in Brooklyn with her sister, and she commutes in town to this gentleman's club where she works. This portrayal of sex work in Baker's films is a theme that runs throughout a number of his films. And these are a couple of articles from Variety and Vox that talk about that I would point you to if you want to, read up a little bit more about it. The first article from Variety just states that Sean Baker makes movies about sex workers in hopes of helping remove the stigma. And he's already talking about the next one. If you're watching the Oscars ceremony that night, you would have heard Sean Baker state that in his speech that he wanted to remove the stigma and just bring more attention to people working in this field to, I guess, destigmatize, the work. He certainly has a perspective on it that I think is interesting. Part of the interesting thing about exploring films and just sort of seeing the voice of a filmmaker and what they're trying to say, the way in which he portrays these characters and brings realness to them as human beings and as people, and brings a reality to the circumstances of their lives and presents it in a way that's not salacious or exploitative, but in a way that's just real and genuine, and certainly shows aspects of what it is to work in a strip club, but also shows other aspects like the interactions with the employees, other employees, the break room, dealing with the money management of things, and just dealing with all aspects in and outside of it. That just gives you a fuller look of what it's like being a 20-something-year-old person working in this profession that Mikey Madison is playing, and seeing it through her eyes. So can definitely appreciate that. And then, of course, the Vox article here, Anora's big Oscar win in sex worker backlash, explained. And that article deals with just some of the controversy around the different perspectives that people have as to the genuineness in which Sean Baker is presenting sex workers in this film and other films. How real is it? Is it truly honoring, or what is he trying to say, I think, is what people are processing in terms of how it lands on them. Does it feel appropriate? Does it feel right? There's a lot of different perspectives and opinions out there, and these articles help to flesh that out. But then here you see Mikey Madison is Ani Anora. And of course, Anora follows her story, the story of Annie. She's a young Brooklyn stripper whose life takes an unexpected turn when she strikes up a whirlwind romance with the son of a wealthy Russian oligarch. But this isn't a fairy tale. What starts as a glitzy fantasy soon becomes a razor-sharp, character-driven look at personal agency, transactional relationships, and the complexities of survival in an unforgiving city. This takes place in New York City. And I think one of the big messages from Anora that I took is when you see people who work in this particular field and some of the challenges that they run into, I think one of those challenges is the fact that you're dealing with very transactional relationships. And so how do you have a genuine, relationships when so much of what you're experiencing is transactional in nature and is not really real, and you're giving so much of yourself to something like this in a transactional way? That's one of the things that I think as a viewer you're left wondering, how does her character go on, and how do people in this profession function in those spaces? So Mikey Madison, she shines as Annie. She brings a vibrant mix of charm, vulnerability, and street smart resilience to the role. She isn't portrayed as a victim or a stereotype, but she's fully fleshed out with her ambitions, flaws, and moments of surprising tenderness. Then you see here that Ani and Ivan is the young man that she got involved with in this film. He is the son of a Russian oligarch, and it is a fractured fairy tale of a relationship that they are experiencing. And I don't want to go into the details beyond that, but it does get very interesting as you see the fractured fairy tale of this transactional relationship and where that would logically lead. And then you see the involvement of some henchmen, the involvement of the young man's family, his parents, and their less than pleased realization that he is involved with Anora, and where that road takes them. Very fascinating. And it is really at that point that I got really hooked into this story, because the first probably 30 minutes, I was sort of getting a feel for what this was, and I wasn't really fully invested until we got a little bit further into Ani and Ivan's relationship and beginning to figure out, okay, where is this relationship going? And now you have some complication with these henchmen getting involved, his parents getting involved, and things really begin to go down a path where I was pulled in 100%, and I just wanted to see, where is this story going, So, but it took me about 30 minutes or so to get fully invested. But once I was invested, I was locked in, because I wanted to know how this was going to end. But yeah, you see here Mikey Madison and Lindsay Normington. One of the features the two of them doing a screening of Anora to some real life sex workers, and seeing their reactions, having seen the film, and basically their takeaway was it was a pretty authentic telling of, of what life is like in those environments. And so I thought that was a very interesting special feature. And interestingly enough, you'll see in the special features that Sean Baker talks about Mikey Madison's what led him to her. And part of what led him to her was he said that he and his wife Samantha Kwan were in the movie theater watching Scream, the Scream 5, I think, and they saw Mikey Madison in that movie, and they were hooked on seeing her in Scream 5, seeing her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You see her there with that scene with Brad Pitt, with the three of them going, playing Charles Manson's cronies, going up to Brad Pitt's house there to do business with him, and then things going very wild after that. It's kind of crazy. This was the point in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where things just got like completely off the walls crazy toward the end of that film. But yeah, it's her roles in these movies that led Sean Baker to say, we need to pick up the phone, call her agent, and get her in here and talk to her about doing this movie. They had coffee with her, basically offered her the role, and the rest is history. Now, interestingly enough, you see here Ivan's family henchmen. So they have this whirlwind relationship. They're I won't go into the details of it, but let's just say that pretty soon these henchmen get involved. You see Karen Karulian playing Toros. You see Vach Toramanian and Yuri Borosov. He plays Igor. And these are three henchmen that are basically getting involved in the mix in this story to resolve the situation, so to speak. And then basically these henchmen bring the fairy tale ride down to earth. So you see one of the henchmen, he plays a priest by day. And that's one of the funny scenes in this movie that I won't spoil, but you see him at a baptism there. You see them outside with Anora and with the young man Ivan. You see Igor there with Anora there at the bottom. Fascinating and emotional ride that this film is on. And so when you think about the henchmen bringing the fairy tale ride down the earth, at the heart of this film, Anora is really about personal and power dynamics. You have personal, economic, and emotional dynamics that are at play. The film navigates blurred lines between love, survival, and self-interest with nuance and empathy. It's a story about a woman trying to assert control over her life in a system designed to keep her on the margins. And, Sean Baker doesn't shy away from the harsh realities, but he never reduces Ani to a cautionary tale. Instead, we get a very layered exploration of how agency and exploitation can coexist in complicated ways. And that is demonstrated by how these henchmen bring this fairy tale ride down to earth. Of course, you see here Ivan's wonderful parents. This should be put in quotes because, well, let's just say they're anything but wonderful, but they are characters that I think you will enjoy seeing. As you can see there, Ivan's mother and Anora having at the bottom, they're having a very endearing moment there. I'm being sarcastic. But yeah, overall, I think this film is a very fascinating film. It deals with a young woman who falls in love with the son of a Russian oligarch. It's a fairy tale romance, if you would, that goes down a wild and winding path that gets the parents involved, the henchmen involved. And where that leads, I will not spoil for you, but it is a very fascinating ride that I think ends in a way that will leave you thinking after you leave the theater or after you finish watching the film on disc or wherever you're watching it, on a stream or what have you. The ending is definitely something that will stick with you and something that you'll continue to process long after you've seen the film. And it's something that I'm still processing even now, just wondering where she goes next. What will happen to her next is what I'm left with thinking. And I can go a number of different directions with it. And I think you will as well, having seen this film. But seeing these characters interact with one another and seeing the powerful performance by Mikey Madison is definitely worth watching this film. In terms of the content is a bit racy in terms of, some of the content. It is definitely a bit racy. The subject matter is a bit racy, but when you look at it from a story standpoint and realize that it's not shown in an exploitative type way, but is shown in terms of an overall character arc, it is definitely a very fascinating story that I would say is probably not for everybody, but it is definitely a story that I can definitely see the interest in it from a artistic standpoint in terms of how these characters are portrayed who are in this type of work, and really the progression of Annie as a person and where she ends up when the story concludes and where she might go afterwards. I think is something that the director does a nice job of sort of leaving it open to the viewer's interpretation of what they think happens next. So that is how I feel about the movie. I think it's a fascinating film. Whether or not this is Best Picture worthy is something that I'm still kind of processing in my mind, but it is a fascinating film that I enjoyed watching once I got into past the first 30 minutes and the plot began to get moving with the drama of the henchmen and the family getting involved. Things really got super interesting at that point and had me locked in. So definitely I give the movie a recommendation on that basis of the story and think that it's worth checking out if this film sounds like something you might be into. Now, in terms of how this film looks on 4K Ultra HD, this film looks really good. I mean, this film looks solid. It is a new film that came out in 2024. It was shot on Kodak 35 millimeter film. And from what I understand, Sean Baker wanted to give it like almost a 70s type feel to it. So he worked with the cinematographer to sort of flash the film and sort of give it that sort of different kind of look, to make it look kind of like almost like a 70s type film. But of course, recently shot, so it looks fresh, clean, crisp, clear. But it has that little bit of a 70s edge to it. I think he was working off of some inspiration of other films shot in New York, like the Taking of Pelham 123. He mentions that in the supplements. And this film looks really nice. It's sharp, it's detailed. I think it handles the dark scenes very well, the nighttime sequences. It is a new film. It's a new film shot on film, and the 4K presentation looks solid. The audio is a DTS HD master audio, soundtrack, and it sounds really good. There is a song on here, I think the opening song and a song that plays at certain points during the film that's really good. I'll put the name of it up here on the screen. Really good song that really gives this film, a good vibe and just sort of makes you feel airy and really into the characters at a certain point. It plays in the beginning of the film, and it plays at a certain point when Ivan and Anora are together in Vegas at a certain point that I think really lifts the film. So really enjoyed the music, but the sound overall was really good. And I think overall the presentation is very strong on this 4K Ultra HD disc. So I have no complaints about the presentation. I think that this, as would be expected, a brand new film on 4K Ultra HD looks really, really nice. And I can appreciate the fact that it was shot on film and was given that sort of that extra treatment of that flashing to give it sort of a different kind of look. So can definitely appreciate that. As far as the supplements, I mean, I'll just show here, the supplements are excellent. You see here that you have some really, really nice supplements on this edition that I think really make this a very compelling edition overall. You got 2 audio commentaries on here, one that features Sean Baker, Coco, producer Samantha Kwan, and cinematographer Drew Daniels, and then the other that features Baker and several of the actors, including Mikey Madison, Yura Borosov, Mark Edelstein, who played Ivan, Karen Karugian, and Voce Tovmasian. So many of the characters in this film. You have a new making of documentary that is over an hour long. That is a very nice documentary that really takes you through pretty much the entirety of the film. Takes you to day one, day two, day three, and just shows the behind the scenes shooting of the film. That is very good making of documentary. You have new interviews with Sean Baker and Mikey Madison that were recently shot, I think earlier this year before the Academy Awards. So you have one that's a sit down with Sean Baker alone. So it's just him in a chair, just talking and sharing his experiences making this film. And then the second shows the same setting, but two chairs, Sean Baker and Mikey Madison, together talking about this film. And so I think those are two really good interviews. You see the Cannes Film Festival press conference. So it's good to see that. You also see a Q&A with Mikey Madison and actor stripper Lindsay Normington, which is the two of them. It's Lindsay Normington riding in a limo, and she's picking up Mikey Madison to go on the way to the screening of the film to this group of real life sex workers and strippers, and screening the film and getting their reactions afterwards. You see some deleted scenes, which is cool. And then audition footage. Of course, Mikey Madison didn't really have to audition for this film, but you see the auditions of the other actors, several other actors, including the parents, which is very, very cool to see. And then you see the trailers, but yeah, some really nice features on the actual disc itself. But then this is a digipack presentation from Criterion, so I'll show you this here. Of course, what's really cool is this shows you this roller coaster scene with Anora and the henchman, which is cool. You see here you have this booklet here, which deals with Mikey Madison and Anora's Continental Reflecting Today's Cinema Film Review. But inside you have, of course, cast and credits, which is nice. And then you have a couple of really nice interviews. Love's Labors by Dennis Lim. Very, very nice. Yeah, these essays deal with the actual story. So it takes you through the story. It takes you through the whole, area of sex workers and their portrayal in cinema and Sean Baker's work. And then Let's Make a Deal by Cure La Janice. So yeah, very nice essays of this film. And then, of course, I really like the aesthetic of this particular book. Very cool. And then, of course, inside here you see the 3 discs. You have the 4K Ultra HD disc right here, and then Blu-ray 1 and Blu-ray 2, which is really cool. The Blu-ray 2 has the special features on it. The first Blu-ray has the film and the commentary, similar to the 4K Ultra HD disc, which has the film and the commentary. So very nice set overall. I was very happy with the special features. I think the special features did a really good job of fleshing out this film, the making of the film, and really the overall journey of how Sean Baker got to making Anora. His portrayal of sex workers in his previous films, and how Anora was sort of the culmination of all the other films that he had made prior to it to get to this point. And of course, it culminated in a very historic night at the Oscars with him taking away 4 Academy Awards. So yeah, the supplements are really, really cool. And then of course, there's a few, at the time that this film came out, it was pretty well reviewed. You see here the Boston Globe from October 2024. Darker screwball take on princess-based fairy tales. A very positive review here of the film Anora. And then, of course, Tulsa World doing a review of Anora as a wild ride worthy of the buzz. This is from October 2024. And then the article below it saying Sean Baker takes improvised road to Anora. So this is from Tulsa World of October 18th, 2024. That's super cool. And then, of course, definitely check out Mikey Madison's closet pics. So, of course, on Criterion's YouTube channel, and I believe maybe on the webpage, but on Criterion's YouTube channel, you can see all of the Criterion closet pics of the various famous people that come through. And very recently, Mikey Madison did a closet pics video, I think earlier this year, before the Oscars, where she shares her closet picks. And of course, some of those picks includes Sean Baker's films, including Takeout that you see here pictured here that I did a review of a couple of years ago. But yeah, definitely check out that 5-minute video on YouTube. But yeah, Mikey Madison's closet picks. So yeah, there you have it. Those are my thoughts on this film and edition Anora from the Criterion Collection. Again, this is not a film for everybody. Some of the content can be something else, but in terms of the film, the story, and the overall quality of this package, this is a very strong edition from the Criterion Collection. If you're a fan of Sean Baker's work, and if you're interested in this type of a story that deals with people who are involved in this type of work and showing a very frank portrayal of that, this is an edition that you might want to consider picking up. Again, Criterion.com has that 30% off sale going on. And of course, in July, we expect to get a 50% off sale at Barnes & Noble. But let me know in the comment section below, what do you think of this film, Anora? Have you seen it? If so, let me know on what side of the ledger do you fall on. Love it, hate it, somewhere in between? Let me know that in the comment section below, as well as let me know what your favorite Sean Baker film is. Let me know all that goodness in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.